I got done. I came back out expecting to have my kids. And meanwhile, they went with their mother. Um, she had him for 10 years, and then she left her marriage and ran off to New Jersey. So, like the same day, I was called to go get my two boys from their stepfather. I went out and I picked them up, and then I had them raise them for a while. Um, Meanwhile, I was married and I had two other children in between, and so they came and lived with me. uh,
So let me just go back, not to interrupt. So this all started because you were labeled as an alcoholic.
yes.
And they come and take your two children away. Or I'm sorry, they lived with the wife. Then they take the children away.
Yes.
So what was their excuse for taking the children away? Because of the alcoholism, or?
Yeah. And they said I couldn't take care of them. So I was told when children you pick them up that if I went through their treatment and did what they want, I would have them back.
But yet, in the meantime, we were with my mother, who was an alcoholic and drinking too.
And that was never brought up?
No.
Never brought up. Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen him in, I don't know, in that 10 years, maybe 1 year. Out of that 10 year, I got to see him. She kept him away from me, and
both children.
Both of them. They were both kept away from me for the longest time until she actually left her husband, and then I got the phone call.
So how did that? What I want to get across is, how does this make one feel? I mean, now, you're in this town, and now your children are taken away, and you can't explain why except for the alcoholism.
Correct.
So how were you as a parent? Like, I know your gut feeling. Like, what did you want to do?
I was really upset about it because I did what they wanted. I did what the judges said. I did what everybody wanted me to do. But then at the end, I was the one, that got the shafting deal out of it because I was promised something that I never got back.
So CPS comes in. They kind of put these, they intimidate you. They put these fears in you. And so then you just sign off on these things, and they're never true anyway. They don't,
Correct.
hold up on their end. So go ahead. So continue the story from when your kids came back to you with your second wife.
Okay, so then I had the opportunity to get my kids after 10 years, which it was struggle, and I tried to teach them the best after that. Then my other two children that I was married to with the wife that I had came out and said that my youngest boy had touched them. So then I took him down to Shikshini Police Barracks, and he confessed that he did it.
And how old was your son at this point?
I'd say roughly 10. I was 12, so he had to be 10.
Okay, so again, I need to explain this because we are dealing with a system that sets you up to fail. This poor child's 10 years old. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, and I don't think we'll ever find out. But if I'm thinking of the child, they're 10 years old, CPS or the police are involved, and they're questioning this child, or they take him off to a corner and they're talking to him. We don't know if they went up to the child and threatened him and said, you're going to say this and you're going to admit to it, or else we're going to take your parents away, or we're going to do this. I mean, I don't know if they threatened your son or this is something that actually happened. If they did threaten your son, I mean, think of the guilt that he has been living with his whole entire life, and it's not true. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's something that needs to be discussed really with him, and maybe the memories will come back, to find out if it's true or not. But this is the government. This is our system that's targeting families to take your kids for money. But go ahead. Continue the situation of what they did from that home.
So then, that night when I took him down, he admitted it. So then they said to me that he was going to be taken away, and they took him away that night. And I after that, I didn't see him till he got out of that, which he got in contact with me. And nothing was ever said about it anymore. And then me and Tommy, I got kicked out from my other house where I was living with my wife at the time, because Tommy was living there, and because she thought that Tommy did it too, which Tommy was also talking to the police too, also, and admitted he didn't do it. And then the cops let him go back with me.
See, that to me is a little suspicious. I would definitely dig into that a little bit more.
We'll cover that with one of the reports that I have coming up.
Oh, good. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. So the kids are about 10 and 12 at this time? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So then, we got, I was with Tommy, and me and Tommy there, and my wife at the time kicked me out because Tommy was still there. So I had a choice to make. Tommy had to go someplace else and live.
So they're giving you a choice, and actually they're not really giving you a choice. They're saying we're taking your son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just took him that night, and
so how did that make you feel? Like
I was a failure. Like I didn't deserve him.
And there was no proof in the house that you could not be a fit parent.
No. And still today, I still have problems with children today. For what reason, I don't know. It's just that it just seems like they're after me, my sons, and their children because of something that I don't understand and I don't know.
And I'm going to have your son come in. Tom is a very, very brave man who has been able to document everything that he has gone through the court system. Also, him and his brother on what went on in foster care. So what gets under my skin about this, here is a man who has a good reputation in the town, normal dad, he has a loving heart, and his children are taken away for absolutely no reason. They make up things to be able to have a legitimate excuse to take your children away. But Tom, why don't you start where you were a child and being thrown into foster care with your brother.
Well, I wasn't thrown in foster care with my brother. We were two different homes. Yeah. But through it all, with everything with my parents, I was too young to understand. And all I would ever get was one side of the story. I never got to hear the truth. I guess you can say it's the truth, because the truth is what's never heard. I was always told and put in my head through it all by my mother that it's my dad's fault. He did this. He can't raise you. He's an alcoholic. But yet, being a hypocrite, and at the same time, living with her, she's the one that was drinking every morning or every night. And I couldn't seem to understand, if that's the only thing that you have against him, then why are you drinking every day as well? And I was always told that he didn't want to see me. none of that. So throughout it all,
So growing up as a child, that's awful
yeah,
in itself, thinking that a parent doesn't love you.
yeah, because you didn't know where to start. I was too young to know where I was. Well, the town and be familiar, but not being able to know where to start to look for my dad was the hardest part. I knew he was out there, but didn't know where to start. So it was kind of one of those things that I made the best of the situation. I may not have been able to find anything then, but in mind, my goal was, even when I got older, was to attempt to find it. So then after my mom kind of took off to Jersey for another guy when she was married, I was told by my stepdad, he asked me, because he told me he wasn't going to be able to read this, that we were going to have to go back to my father. Which I was kind of good that I didn't have to go through, that somebody knew something more than what I did and contacting, or had some source of contacting him that I did not have. So in a way, I was kind of scared at the first, being so long and not seeing him, but then on the other hand, I wanted to give the chance, and it was only one side of the story. It was never both sides of the story.
That's what they do.
So I mean, it was kind of hard, and it was kind of awkward at first until I got used to it again, being so long away. But I wanted to give the chance, because he was never given the chance from the beginning. I was very young when my mother started and Children and Youth started all this. So I was too young to understand in the beginning. So if he did at that point, I didn't know, but I was not able to see for myself. And it was not fair for him to be my father, for me not to give him the chance or the decision that I didn't have when I was younger. If he wanted to take it, fine. If not, fine too. But apparently he took it, which was, rejection was the hardest, coming back. Once I got over that fear, it was fine. You know, it was the change in environment. Going from one household for so long into another one, and knowing what is allowed at one place versus another place. It's like changing a job.
So how did you feel in these foster care homes? Like this, you're going in and it's just a business contract, or did you actually feel love from these foster parents?
I, to this day, still am will tell anybody to their face that I've been through it. I've seen how it is. You know, I've been in multiple foster homes and group homes. You know, I was moved from. There was one that I liked. I got along with him, and still to this day, I still talk to him. But he was my first one. So after time and time being in there, the next thing I know, I'm fine. I'm not doing, like I'm not being confronted or anything or told I'm doing anything wrong. The next thing I get told is, you're being moved from this foster home, which I actually didn't have a problem with.
But they didn't give you a reason.
The only reason I was told is because I was a troubled child.
You were a what?
Troubled child.
Okay, so see, to me, I'm trying to picture this. Number one, you feel uncomfortable going into these homes. Number two, you're in there, you must be feeling like you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to be moved to another home. And then they're labeling you as a troubled child. That's awful. You have the rejection, not intentionally from your father. You had a loving parent, but because of CPS, this child's growing up thinking his parents don't love him. And that is a crime in itself. I mean, I can break up in so many different levels. But finish your stories of going from foster care
So,
to foster care home.
and through it all, it seemed like I was being moved further and further and further away. To the point that I can't recall how many different ones there was in between. Because at that point, I didn't understand it's supposed to be in the best interest of the children, but why I kept getting bounced around from one environment to another. So there is a couple in between that I choose not to recall, or I just don't recall because I have nothing to remember about them. But at one point, there was another foster home that I was out in Bedford or Belfont. I'm sorry. With a foster parent out there. Where my first one, I was somewhat in the area that I was born and raised in, but going all the way out there, I had nothing. I didn't know nothing. It was like I was.
Did they let you stay in touch with your brother? I mean, I know
No.
it's two different things.
No.
So you also lost your
I lost
sibling?
everything through it all.
Yeah.
And anytime I would ask, I didn't get no answers about it. It seems like they just pushed it off.
Did these parents hug you, or did they make you feel at all loved or
Yes.
wanted?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
But the two that I remember, but the last one I was at before I ended up going into, because of the labeled as a trouble child, and that was their excuse through it all.
And did you do anything to have that label?
Nope. I was
grades, good grades, good.
Yeah. I was told it was for. I find out after I was at my last one before going into a group home, because I still talk to that foster parent. The reason being labeled as a trouble child through the system is the more they move you with the label as a trouble child, the more funding they get.
Bingo. Follow the money, but go ahead.
So I was only at his place for 6 months. Children and youth mentioned to him something about if he wanted to keep me before they moved me, he could. Well, when he tried taking a stand to keep me and save me from being bounced in the system, to try to keep me somewhat steady in a steady environment, because he would have kept me until he told me, to this day he still tells me he would have kept me until I was 18 and opted out. Or I got out, whichever came first.
And the services never recontacted you,
No,
did they?
no.
And try to reconnect blood.
No.
Like, I don't.
Nope, they never.
So once you're torn apart, it's next to impossible to get your child back. Is basically.
Yep, I was never given any information. Like I said, I had no idea how to contact, and nothing. And children and youth should have had contact information for him. You just took us from him. So how do you not have some sort of contact information for me to be able to start? Instead, they kept pushing it off, and not giving me answers.
So this is like a child that's going through a war that loses their parents and can't get in touch with them. And here we are in our own country, and they're intentionally destroying families like this.
Absolutely. So they said that the other foster parent, if he wanted, I could have stayed there. So when he did what he thought was best for me, instead of seeing me bounce around, he stepped up wanting to keep me. And when he made the effort, because I think maybe they didn't think he was going to want to, and it would look better on them, when he did step up to try to take me, he was told that he wouldn't be able to handle me with all my problems, and he told them that yes, he would. Somewhere along the line, when he was trying, from what I'm gathering from him, putting pieces together, he told me recently when I spoke to him, we just got back in connection, that there was a lot more to what I saw, that children and youth, and that actually had a gag order against him and threatened his parents if he had opened his mouth against them moving me.
So children and youth is like CPS in different areas.
Yes.
So children and youth threatens the father, foster father. And go ahead, continue this, because that's...
So at that point, he told me that he wanted to fight. He wanted to do everything in his power, but when children and youth had threatened and put a gag order on him and his family, he was...
A gag order for what? Like...
They said the gag order basically, when they did that, is if he would have opened his mouth against them moving me, that they were going to attack his family.
Nice. Nothing phases me. Absolutely nothing phases me.
So
I'm glad he came up. This is why people need to speak out about our system.
So, in the meantime, after that, I moved to, which is now closed. Figure that out. It was called Evergreen Youth Services out of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, which is now no longer a group home, which was the worst place. And they told me when they moved me that was going to be the best to help me cope and deal with everything that was going on. But yet, the only issues I was having was, why the hell weren't you telling me how to contact my father? Why wasn't I given that chance? I have yet to this day have got answers on it.
And you have every right as a child to know where your parents are.
Correct.
And he has every right to know where his child is.
Yep.
Is this where they were giving you drugs for ADHD?
Yep.
Explain how the drugs made your, emotions, I guess.
So they were telling me that when I got there that I was having mental health issues, and that they thought seeing a counselor would have been to my interest. So I ended up going to see a counselor, and next thing I know, I'm being put on Ritalin, Risperidol.
Under whose approval?
The counselor's counseling, Northeast Counseling to be exact.
So, in other words, these mental institutions have an incentive to put you on drugs, so they make money off of these, prescriptions that they're giving you. But in reality, you just need love. You just want to find your parents, and that doesn't make you ADD, or it doesn't make you have mental issues. Yes, I'd have mental issues because I want answers, and nobody's giving me answers. So it's more frustration than a need to be put on a drug.
Yeah, and it seemed like when I was put on it that there was more and more issues coming up because of the medication. When in fact all I wanted was questions answered to know what was going on. I may have been a child, but putting somebody on drugs comparing to being there and answering questions for a child, which so much has happened in their life, and putting them on drugs to drug them so that they don't deal with it, that is not dealing with the issue. The issue will always be there, but instead they decided that you need counseling. We're going to put you on medication to drug you so that you forget about it. It's like anything else. It's like alcohol or any other drug out there. It don't help the issue in the long run. It only helps temporarily. So when that medication would wear off, I was getting different things. I had medicine as far as lithium. That required me going for blood work every month because it could have gave me thyroid problems, could have gave me kidney failure, and a lot of others.
In reality here, I see a huge lawsuit where you should be going back because they were drugging you, and you don't have your parents to protect you to say, no, you're not allowed to give my child drugs. So they're stripping you from a home, throwing you into a place, and drugging a child who's not old enough to make these decisions. It's everything about this is wrong.
Yep. So it was kind of like I said, it was a vicious cycle that once you're in, you don't get out because they'll do things that temporarily, I guess, ease the pain and so that they can push it off so they don't have to answer questions. Because had my questions been answered as far as even like contacting my father, at that point I wanted to. But I was unable to because I had no idea where to start or none of that in that nature, but yet they had information how to contact him, so why couldn't I have it? So at that point I kind of lost hope, I guess. I mean, at that point, getting the information from children and youth. You know, it was either I was going to get it from them or I was going to go on my own when I turned 18 to find him.
So that's 4 years you were in that home on drugs.
That group home, it was 2.
2 years, okay.
The others were the other foster homes. So, in my mind, I kept at that, you know, being told and being blown off so many times. In my mind, I had my mind set for failure. I put it up to, you know what, I'm not going to get answers. So don't get yourself excited. Don't count on it. Just expect to do it when you're 18. And you're out and nobody can tell you what to do. So once I got that put into my head, I mean, the thoughts were there about what's going on, what he's going through, you know, or even what just happened that I missed, or what was I the one that did wrong?
Right, so as a child, you're feeling like you did something wrong and you were thrown in this home. You had no answers, no real answers. So, Tom, tell him, I guess, afterwards, like from when you opted out, did you start looking for your brother and your dad, or just your dad to hook you up in hopes to find your brother? And tell him about your brother being in the Kids for Cash scandal. By the way, this is Luzerne County and Columbia
County
in Pennsylvania.
So I stayed until I opted out at the age of 18. I was in Jim Thorpe near Altoona. So when I get out, I opted out at 18 and I decided to come back to the area. Not to the original area where I was taken to, but to Danville. At that point, I got my own place, started working, and at that point, I was just trying to get on my feet, stay above, and not go afloat, because the last thing that came out of children and youth's mouth when I left is, you're never going to make it, you're going to fail, you're going to end up in jail.
Oh, that's nice. So when you left, did you have any money? I mean, how did you survive? How did you get... I mean, the system sets you up to fail. They want you homeless. They're making us homeless. So you're 18 years old. You have no experience. How did you go out and survive?
I had a friend that I was able to stay with so that I
Thank
could.
God.
Yeah, thank God. Because I definitely was not going to let them put me up for failure. So I was able to stay with him for 4 weeks, which was enough time to get enough money around to get my own place, to get onto my own, and, you know, tell him to kiss my ass, basically, you know. You're not going to prove me, I'm going to prove you wrong. You beat me through the system enough, you said enough about me, you know, I'm not going to do it now, and I'm not going to let you. So after I got to work and got everything situated with myself, and got myself to where I needed to be and focus and move on, at that point I had started looking for my dad.
Good for you.
And came in contact with him again.
And how were you able to do that? I mean, just research
Yeah.
yourself?
And, yeah, I mean...
How was that reunion? Because you hadn't seen each other in years.
It was hard.
So it's 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm. It was 6, 8, somewhere in it. It was hard. You know, I said to myself, I didn't know
He
if...
did something right, he came back.
I didn't know if it was going to go to my interest or if I was just going to push further. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to do it. What's the worst I'm going to have? You know, I have more to gain than I would have lost. You know, being beat through the system, I said, you know what? If they had me down enough, nobody could have put me any lower. So, after meeting up with them again, I wasn't rejected. It was most definitely awkward and hard at first for, like I said, 6 years not talking to them, been pushed away, and anytime questions were asked, never been answered. You know,
and this is all the system. So you're growing up thinking your parents didn't love you, they separated your brother, and your poor dad didn't even understand, you know, as most of us don't understand. We just are humiliated and we're shamed and we just hide. And that's why we need people to talk out, because this is happening everywhere. And now you're living with rejection, you know, in fear of rejection or in fear of having love ever in your life. And that's how this all starts. But continue this, because this is,
so,
I apologize. I just cannot believe you
survived
this.
So once I was able to get back in contact, it was overwhelming. There was questions to be answered, and not knowing what to say, what to talk about, or anything, because of being away for so long, was the hardest part. It took years before me and my dad were ever able to talk about it, because being beat through the system, I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to go by the past. I kind of wanted to push it to the side. The time wasn't right. I didn't want to start asking questions, and the chance of pushing him away again instead of kind of moving forward. So I took it and I decided we were going to move forward. I mean, it took time before we were able to talk and figure everything out.
How was your reaction? Like, how were you feeling? Were you?
I was glad, you know. It's like there's something, you know, was taken away, you know, and getting it back, you know.
So the only thing that you love in your life is your child. They take them away, and here, thank God, Tom was smart enough to come back in contact. But you have that fear in you. But you had an excitement at the same time.
Yeah.
But don't know how to handle it, I guess. It's hard to handle.
Correct. It was one of those things that...
But you are giving people hope, so you know this is a good thing.
you didn't know how to handle the situation. It made me feel very awkward at first. But I felt that he wasn't given the chance to begin with. And everybody deserves a chance. You know, I don't think anybody shouldn't have a chance unless they prove somebody wrong. And being as young as I am, people can say, you know, what I was told from my mom and things like that, and Children and Youth about my dad. I was too young to understand. I didn't know. You know, and who knows what was true and what wasn't. You know, I was only getting one side of the story. And there's always two sides to a story. So, with not being told all this stuff throughout it all, I told myself that I pushed myself not to, because it wasn't true, not to believe it. That he had to give a chance now, and if he showed me when I got older, or I had proof that any of it was true, then I would handle it at that point. But it was basically people turning against people and using the system, and the system using the government.
They use their power.
Well, power,
to put fear in you. So now that you two are connected, were you able to reach out to your brother and find him? You said he went through the Kids Through Cash scandal.
Yeah.
So go ahead and explain that. That happens in Luzerne.
2009.
Luzerne County.
So then after that, my brother, with his problems and what was going on in mine, and then just connecting with my dad again, I just wanted to make sure my brother was alright. I wasn't ready to connect or talk to him again because I wanted to take one step at a time. So as long as I knew he was okay and still alive, not hearing or being around him for so long, that's all I needed. I needed to know that he made it and is alive. Then after, it took me quite a while, I think 2 years after that it took me, because he's 2 years younger than me, before I heard from him and attempting to find him. Well, then I find out that with him being put away and his ordeal, he was actually caught up with Mike Chivarella and Cunningham when he was put away with the Casper's Kid scandal, when they put him in the group home in Luzerne County, where they were taking bribes to put these kids away.
Yeah, and keep them there on like frivolous things, like you said you lied to something. I mean, they were like ridiculous things, and they were putting these kids in juvenile detention, I guess they called it back then.
Yeah. Instead of getting
keep him in longer, they made more money.
Yep. Instead of sending him in the air, something that was going to help him, they just took him. I think it's Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, all the way on the other side. They sent him into a group home instead of to somewhere, and basically just put him there, and that was it.
Did they drug him too?
That I'm not sure of, but I do know he was on medication at one point, he told me. So I don't know if it was him or if it was what. I mean, I know what I want to say, but I don't have the facts to back it up, but it could have been them putting him on it.
It's almost like the government's treating the children like lab rats, and they're doing studies on these drugs and giving them to them for absolutely no reason at all.
Yeah. And because, even like I said, I was on medication. They had me on so many different ones. And when I opted out at 18 years old, they told me up and down, left and right, that I was going to have to continue to take it. The doctors, children and youth, all told me that I was going to have to continue to take it.
And what happened when you stopped?
In my eyes, I was not going to count on a drug the rest of my life to make me what they claimed be sane.
Good for you.
So I took it up until the day of my 18th birthday. When I left and was opted out, they ended up getting thrown in the garbage. And it has been almost 11 years later, and I am still not a nothing. I feel more of a human being. I have more of feeling normal than when I was on it, and that's why I said they were putting me on this to take away the pain and try to cover it up and make me feel like I wasn't normal instead of feeling my actual feelings.
Did you feel foggy on the drugs?
I felt like I was stoned out of my mind and a zombie all the time. All I wanted to do was sleep.
See, I see it as they're drugging you because later on they want to say you're mentally unstable. They want to keep adding to your docket.
Yeah.
Everything is tracked. So your record, they're saying, oh, the kid was in foster care. He's a troubled child. He was on these drugs. They're making a record of a bad person.
Correct.
And you're not. I'm just saying that's how the system works.
So
go ahead.
Like I said, after that I decided to, when I turned 18, I said, to hell with it. I wasn't taking it. I didn't care. I wanted a chance to be myself and see the issues that they claimed I had. Drugging me was not going to help me cope with any issues that I would have had.
Exactly.
It's only going to temporarily ease the pain. Now, if I would have came out and noticed that I still had problems, then maybe I would have went back to them. But 11 years later, I still don't have them and don't need them. And most of it, I can't even tell you what all I was diagnosed with. But now I'm down to ADHD. Just about everybody has that.
They just call it a name so they can apply a drug to it.
Mm.
I mean, when we were kids, it was more like, oh, that kid's a daydreamer. Yeah. And it's good to be a daydreamer. That's not a negative thing.
Yeah.
It's not a negative thing. But go ahead and tell how it's the third generation now, how it's affecting you. And this is all on the one judge.
Yeah. Yep. Now we're still. I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old. I mean, a 9-year-old named Jasmine. I have a 7-year-old named Mason, and I have a 2-year-old named Tyson. So, me and the mother of my oldest, why we had our problems. Communication was a lot of the issues, and not being able to hear no. So,
well, not that you had good examples growing up, because you're going from foster care to foster care. So how are you supposed to know this? You're not taught in school
and
how to have relationships.
And you know what? That I do believe, because I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but to put a point out there, 3 years, be 3 years tomorrow, of no talking to my daughter's mother, who Children and Youth made her put a PFA on me, and everything else that will come, not talking to her, to now. There's a lot of changes. There's the communication that needs to be there. There is now more of putting the children first before ourselves. And like I said, and you said, I think it was a lot to do with being in the foster care and not knowing right from wrong. You know, it took some time for me to be able to put in my own head and realize on my own, and not being somebody telling me how or when or what I was doing, where I was living, to being able to make decisions on my own and see what the outcome was, made it maybe where the communication between and being able to take no for an answer, you know.
So you're 19 at this point. You're with your girlfriend. You have Jasmine. And how long did you have Jasmine before the first incident happened?
Well, Jasmine was born in 2008. I was still with her mother at the time for a while. Before we even brought her out of the hospital, we were dealing with Children and Youth. And not so much me, but more on reports of her mother not bonding to the child, them assuming that she's not going to be able to take care of the child.
Wait, so where are they getting this from? They don't know her at all. You're the target, and now because she's involved with you, they're saying that she doesn't know how to bond? Mm-hmm. The baby's just born.
And she just come from an emergency C-section an hour before.
And they're putting claims that this mother doesn't know how to bond with her child. Mm-hmm. And how long before they take the child away?
Well, they didn't take her away right away. It was just a very...
But
they're involved with the case now with my daughter. And it's now...
They're tracking and recording so that later on they can take this child and throw him back into the system so they can make money off of it.
Yep.
So this is the patterns that I'm trying to explain of what CPS, it starts from the judges with the bad decisions, It starts with these therapists that are not qualified and they're intentionally doing this. And now CPS, police are involved. But go ahead and show them the evidence that you have and explain all this.
So, kind of, like I said, at the point of the hospital with my daughter, nothing at that point. They got in stating that the mother hadn't bonded with the child. So, but what I kept saying to myself is, and I told her at that point, because I was going back and forth to work, I was staying at the hospital and working at the same time, and I told her, because now, and keep in mind, I seen the same county yank 2 of my cousins from my aunt with no evidence and no investigation. So I already
have your cousin on your dad's side?
Stepfather's side.
Stepfather's side. Okay.
So I've been on the down low with these people. I've been watching these people and just trying not to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I was in one of my goals as a parent was I didn't want my children in the system. I don't know what happened to my dad. I can't blame my dad. I didn't want to worry about that. The important thing was that I got back in contact with him. So I wanted to, whether it would have been them trying to use me or using the system to their advantage, wanted to keep my kids from going into that. And I told myself, I know what I went through. I would never recommend it to anybody. I think being in a foster home and in the system was probably, I'm not going to say probably, was a lot worse than had I have stayed with my dad, even not having somewhere to live. The emotional and abuse that I went through.
Absolutely. So you're saying you'd rather be homeless on the street with your dad, the loving parent, than being bounced around from foster care to foster care.
Yeah.
That was very well said.
So I had an idea of the system, and I didn't want to see my kids go through it, and I told myself I would fight it. I would fight it until I was dead if anybody would try to mess with my kids. They are my blood, and I would put up a fight till the end. So they do their little bullshit allegation that they had to do an investigation, and the case was closed. Or they didn't find enough evidence. Yeah, it was not finding enough evidence, because then we brought my daughter home. And 28 days later, we get a closing letter that nothing was found. So there's a period of maybe a year, 2010. Yeah, 2010, from 2008 to 2010. I hadn't heard from the people, children and youth. I haven't heard nothing from them. Beginning of 2010, me and her mother separated.
Okay.
And the child stays with me. And next thing I know, a week later, I'm getting anonymous referrals and allegations on me. And I'm still dealing with them to this day, on and off. So I can't even tell you where to start with what came what, as far as what the indicated reports would be.
I don't know if you can see that, but that is all the paperwork. This is the kind of, if you are not organized, you can't beat the system. But I must commend Tom. He's very organized.
I have.
And tracked everything.
I mean, in 2012, the first one, 2011, 10, next thing I know, they referred to me as told me that I had a drug problem. Children and youth did.
So they're going, I'm picturing them, CPS or children and youth, at their desk going, who else can we target? And we're gonna set them up with, we have anonymous calls. So that's the reason, that's given us an excuse to come after your next child.
And that's actually what the report was, actually. The 2010 one was I was doing drugs.
So they falsely accuse you, and then what happens?
I get them showing up at my door. They show up at my door, and they tell me they want a drug test done. So I'm like, okay, I have nothing to hide. I'll do a drug test. That's no issue. So I do a drug test, and
That's a little
stepping on. That's a violation
that's a
of my
violation.
privacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's your own. What's the allegation? What is their right to come into your house and give you a drug test?
So, I mean, me not having nothing to hide because I said to myself that I was going to fight the system and I wasn't going to let them win. I was going to prove them wrong because I knew what they did. I knew how they operated. So I did the drug test. It comes back clean. They tell me they have nothing to worry about. So in the meantime, I get another report that comes through in February of 2010 for health. Mental, physical, or medical health against my daughter, physical hygiene, supervision, and parenting needs request.
Is that the one with the dirty nails? Or?
Not yet.
Oh.
No, that's at the end.
Sorry.
At the end. So, anyway, they do this, and they tell me that they want to get me into services, and they thought that they told me, they didn't even think or ask, they told me that I needed to do parenting classes at that point. That's what this whole one was about, was parenting classes.
And did you have to pay for that?
No.
Okay.
So I said, okay, what do I have to lose? I'm going to play their games just like they think they're going to play the games with me. So I'm like, what do I have to lose? I'll go to parenting classes. I mean, I was young, but it wasn't the first child that I raised. I raised my kids out of my marriage before that. So it's not like I was a new child. I just wasn't going to tell them that. I was going to play their game like they thought they were playing me. I was not telling them anything more than what they needed to know. You don't ask, don't tell.
It's true.
So I do the parenting classes. I got my certificate, I think, towards the end of that year. This is when they scheduled me to go in. And in the meantime, I have them knocking at my door, and I wasn't there. I had come back to a card on my door, and that just pissed me off. So I threw it right in the goddamn garbage. I said, you kiss my ass. You have no reason to bother me. So it was a time around September, because I remember it was the Bloomsbury Fair. I was working down there. And my stepsister, through my stepfather, was watching my daughter. And I remember to this day, I was on my way home, not knowing what the hell happened from the time I left to go to work to the time I come home. But it was with Luzerne County. I remember coming home, telling my sister, sending her a text that I was on my way to pick up my daughter. She told me, no, you weren't. And I said, excuse me? I said, what the hell do you mean I'm not picking up my child? I said, that is my goddamn child. I said, I'll come and beat your ass if I have to. I said, you're not keeping my child. So she told me, she goes, well, if you show up at my house, I'm going to call the police and have you arrested. I'm like, wait a minute. You have my goddamn child and you're going to tell me I can't come and get my child?
I mean, were you guys arguing before?
No, it's good. No, we weren't. We didn't talk. I didn't talk to her the whole day. I normally don't. So I said, why are you telling me that I can't come and get my kid? I said, I want to know what things makes you think you have a set of balls to tell me I can't get my own kid. I said, that is my kid. I made that child, not you. I said, I thought children and youth I had to worry about keeping my kids. Now it's you. So that's when I find out, and she tells me that Luzerne County had got a hold of her somehow, some way. I have no idea. Or there was a referral or something that they had to investigate. So until they were able to investigate and do all their investigation, that they were not to give me my child back.
So, what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like they were following you because number one, how they even know that you gave your child to your stepsister?
Mm-hmm.
How do they even know that? So they find an opportunity where, you have to work and make a living.
Oh
You're
yeah,
at
because
work.
then you can't take care of your child if you don't.
Right. And if you stay home with them and keep the child, then you're a deadbeat dad and you're not working.
Yep.
So
You're
no matter
damned
what.
if you do, damned if you don't.
So, does she have the child, or did they come and take the child? From
No,
her stepsister?
she had the child.
Okay.
So until they did their investigation, so then it's a Friday night, 7:00 at night. Only thing that's going through my mind, one of these assholes are going to answer me questions, not my sister, because she's not telling me that. So, like I said, I wasn't getting. All I knew is there was an investigation. Supposedly, she had physical abuse, and they had to do an investigation. So I'm trying to figure out why
and
the
there's
hell.
no marks on your child.
No. So I'm trying to figure out why the hell why there is a wait to have an investigation done. Why they aren't already there and did their investigation. They're supposed to act in a certain amount of time.
Sure, if the child's being beaten, truly being beaten, then you think they'd be at that door now and taking that child away.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the job if it's real. But if it's under false allegations,
yeah, we'll
time flies.
Yeah. So somehow I ended up getting emergency contact information for the on-call worker and to figure out what the heck was going on. And they had no idea what was going on either.
So again, you're not getting answers.
No. So I'm not getting answers. I'm getting pissed off. And I'm about ready to cause a scene and make sure somebody comes out and does their damn job and figures out what the hell is going on, because there's apparently nobody knows what's going on.
That's what they want you to do, by the way.
So
they want you to react.
I went up to my sister's house, and next thing I know, she calls the police. But nobody's answering my questions. Fine, then I'll get the police here. Maybe they'll get an answer for me. Because if not, as far as the police are concerned, and I'm going to tell them, I'm taking my goddamn child. Unless you have a reason to tell me I can't, or prove to a reason why I can't have my child, she's going to hell with me. So the police come, and my sister says, well, I'm calling the police, first of all. And I said, I don't give a shit. Call the police. It's my kid. I'll get you for kidnapping. And she goes, well, tell them you. I said, I don't give a shit. I'll get them for kidnapping, too. They have nothing to prove to keep my kid from me. So the police show up, and I tell him my side, and she tells her side. And I said to him, I don't care what you have to say, what she has to say. I want my child, or I'm going to go above your head, and I'm going to start filing for illegal kidnapping. And then I'm going to make Amber Alerts go out, and I'm going to make everybody's head go nuts. I said, I don't care. I wouldn't be breaking a law. My kid's kidnapped. I don't know what's going on. I said, so I'm not really doing nothing wrong. I'm doing what a normal parent would do.
So you see your child, there's no bruises, nothing, and still nobody can give you any answers.
Correct.
But you're in fear of getting arrested, or you're in fear of this, and plus you're probably thinking now your situation as a child, what your father was going through.
Oh, yeah.
So that must be going through your mind at the same time.
Oh, yeah. So, and like I said, I told the cop, I said, unless you can give me a notice or something from a judge or lawyer or whatever that I'm not to have my kids, I'm going in and I'm getting my child. I said, and if my sister thinks she's going to stop me and lock the door, I said, you can stand right here. I said, I'm not going to lie to you and candy coat it. I said, I'll kick her the door in. So he managed to get her and tell her that I was taking her either way. And in the meantime, he's on the phone. I find out that he's trying to get a hold of children and youth to find out what was going on, because I understand his point. He got me saying one thing, my sister saying another. He's stuck in the middle, so he's probably only doing what's right from wrong to try to figure out and break it down to what happened. So he asks me, and he pulls me over to the side, and he tells me, and he talks to me, and he asks me if I have a problem hanging out there for a little bit, that he was having children and youth come out to see what the hell was going on, and if there was anything in file that I couldn't take her, because if not, then he was not stopping me from taking her. So I said, no, that's fine. I said, I'll wait. If they come here and say nothing's wrong, I said, then I'm taking her. And like I said, I was stuck in between possibly if I would have made a move, getting arrested, or just sitting there and letting them come out and saying nothing's wrong because I knew nothing was wrong, and taking her and not being arrested. So I said, all right, we'll wait.
There's no evidence, no proof,
There's
nothing.
nothing.
You should be able to take your child and go. End of story.
Yep, and for them to take her in the beginning, I was never given a notice from a judge, a search warrant or nothing as far as anything to do with her. So that night I ended up leaving with her because nobody knows what the hell's going on. I got tired of them. Oh, I don't know. Let me call this person. I said, no. If you can't, I said, you can go look at my child if nothing's wrong. I said, I'm not going to sit here and jump through these loopholes. I said, if you have nothing right now, I said, there's no reason that I can't take her right now. I said, that's the bottom line. So I said, go check her, go look at her, go talk to her, go whatever. I said, but I'm telling you, I'm taking her. So he goes in, he makes sure everything's fine, has no bruising, and asked her if she wanted to go with me, and she said yes.
How old is she at this point?
I think about 1. So it was just that at that point, but I knew what that was. So it wasn't even really she could talk or defend herself either.
That's how they get the kids.
So I was that's why at that point I said to go investigate, do whatever the hell you got to do. I said, because I'm not giving you no reason. And when I went in, she was all happy, and I walked out the door just to be a wise ass and see if I could do it and prove a point. I walked out and she started screaming. So I walked back in the door and she stopped. I walk out a second time, she does it again, and I walk back in. Just to see if anybody else is paying attention. No, they weren't. So he does his thing, and I just...
So they probably were paying attention, they just don't care.
Correct, correct. It was one of those things that if you're not going to pay attention to it, I'm just going to keep it to myself as, more power for me in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up leaving with her that night, and got home. We were fine. Somewhere, and then in the early 2011, her mother, let's go back. Right before that all happened with my daughter, at that point I had met my son's mother, I'm sorry. Back in, I can't even tell you the date. Anyway, in the end of 2010, my son was born. December 20th. Yeah. So with the incident with my daughter at my sister's mom, up until December there was nothing. I didn't hear from her again. Even when she was having him at the hospital, we didn't have children in youth with him. Nobody made this bullshit that she couldn't bond with him, none of that. But keep in mind, it could have been the county that she was in. My daughter's mother had her child in Luzerne. My daughter's mother had him in Columbia. And even with my son, even up to this day, who is 7 or 8, we've had one report with children and youth on him, and he's in it with her because we have split custody. And I used to work third shift, so I didn't want to pull him in and out of my house at night. So he resides with her in Columbia. And for his whole 8 years, we've only had one report on him.
How far away are these counties?
They're side by side.
They're back to back. So obviously these two court systems are working with each other. You're in the system, they know you.
Yeah. So, but then, like I said, going through it all, even why my son is born and growing up, I have my daughter who is with me in Luzerne County, which I moved and turned around and hopped right to hell back out of Luzerne quicker than hell because of the whole everything, and I didn't trust them.
They are very well known for a very dirty county.
Oh,
corrupt.
Absolutely. The most corrupted. I hope, I've went through a lot, but I didn't know where I was going to stop. I didn't know if it was ever going to end with everything in Luzerne County. Why, in Columbia, I didn't have the issue. So going through it all, I get into Luzerne County. They show up at my house again, and it's just the same allegations over and over again that I had before. The mental, emotional, and needs, and they tried saying that she wasn't fed. They were the common ones that they use.
How do they know you're not being fed? They just knock on your door and say, today I'm going to stop by and I don't think you're feeding your child.
Good question, because every time I asked where these allegations were coming from, they told me they couldn't tell me that they were an anonymous person that called in. But here's the problem.
Who would know? Even your next door neighbor, unless if they're living in this house, how do they know that child is not being fed?
Correct. But yeah, she's going to doctors on her doctor's visits, and there's no
reports of malnutrition.
And they're a mandated reporter, so why haven't you are targeting instead of looking at the facts and the evidence? You do what you want, when you want, and how you want to do it. If you don't like it, tough shit, you abuse the system to go through.
Here's the thing: the child will thrive if they're with the parent that loves them the most.
Absolutely.
You put a child somewhere and cut them off from that parent, that child is not. That's abuse.
Oh, absolutely. I have, because as it goes on in time, I got tired of hearing it, and this and that, and this and that. I got to the point that anything to do with my kids, I have my daughter and son at this point, that I went and got binders. I said, to hell with this. If I have to start filing anything and everything that has to do with my daughter, then that's actually what I'll do. So that's what I did. And once that allegation came up with the whole doctor, or not the doctor, not fed and all that, I just had enough. And I was like, you know what? A mandated reporter ain't reporting it. What's going on? At that point, my guard went up and I was covering every base I can.
So these people are not competent, and what you did was excellent, actually.
So I actually started doing everything at that point, and even to as far as doctor's visits, doctor's appointments, doctor appointment reminders, her medical records, they are all filed in a binder somewhere. And I have not one copy, I have 3.
But Tom, here's the point.
In multiple different areas, so I always have them.
Here's the point, though. You did a good job, but why should you have to have all these documents on your child that you love and you want to raise? This is your child. You know what I mean? You're not going to purposely hurt, unless if you're like, some mad rapist or something hurting the child. Nothing was proven.
Correct.
Nothing was proven. But yet you're in fear that your child's going to be taken away.
Yep.
That's awful.
So,
it's an awful way to live.
It is. So, I was just not giving them the opportunity to twist stuff around. I guess I was more looking at it the long run. If somebody was going to mess with me or my child, I was going to have proof. I was going to have my evidence, and that was going to be that. There was no way somebody was going to manipulate me. But
you're in hopes that's going to happen.
Yeah,
you're in hopes that's going to happen, but
correct.
the system doesn't work that way.
It didn't work out. So that was my idea in mind because I missed a part back in when I was in foster care. I should have mentioned that, but it totally slipped my mind. My dad had mentioned about how my brother was listed for a report. Well, I actually was listed as well. And
what do you mean listed? What?
I was on an indicated report with the Department of Health, which is the next step higher than children and youth. It actually goes to Harrisburg, and it's called Childline. It was on my record.
So the government makes all these false allegations. How do you get this stuff off your record?
So it was actually, I say to myself, okay, what the hell is going on? Because once my son was born, next thing I know, Children and Youth is mentioned about I was listed as being listed on an indicated report through Harrisburg from 2001.
So they set this up the whole entire
So
time.
I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute, 2001? I'm not even an adult. I was under their supervision. I was in foster care at that point.
How old were you? In
16.
16.
So, and I knew at one point that I did have one come through, which is these here. But then again, when I was in there, I was a minor child. They were actually my legal, Children and Youth was actually my legal guardians. They should have been responsible to follow through with everything. And they, on their end, didn't do their job and follow through with the procedure. They actually never told me about a hearing that I had to go to this to fight this.
And you're 16.
I am 16 years old. I actually have right here, it actually isn't that's weird as hell. That don't even look like my handwriting, but it could be. 16, that's quite a while back.
And they're probably forcing you to sign something that you don't even understand.
Yeah, because that was filed in 2001, so 2002, but I'm not sure. But anyway, this is the letter I stated in there that I was a minor child, that they were supposed to, that I was giving them the right to go ahead and work on what I thought was appealing it all. Because being a minor child, I had to write it to let them know. So, needless to say, my daughter, and well, when my son was born, they're bringing this up and saying it's still on file, and I'm like, Columbia should have appealed that. They were given a letter of consent by me to do what they had to do to resolve that issue.
So, in other words, they are writing. You had a court hearing, and the guardian ad litem or the children and youth services are supposed to take you to the courthouse. And
well, I had to. With me being a minor child at 16, they told me that I had to write this notice here to allow them to request the appeal and do all that because of being a minor child. So
of course you're going to sign it because you don't really understand it, and then they're actually controlling your life behind the scenes.
Correct. So, and I forgot that this letter was even there until now. Keep in mind, 15 years later, which these particular documents, and it gets interesting at the end with that one, you only have a 30-day period to appeal these.
Mm-hmm. So you have no
15 years later, I'm able to go ahead and appeal this. But they say you only have 30 days.
This
So,
is abuse at the highest level, in my mind. I mean, this is complete soul murdering. This is abuse.
So, I mean, then once I started to appeal, because like I said, after I did that, I didn't hear nothing about this. So I was like, okay, they took care of it, everything's good. I was too young, I didn't know none of that, I didn't know that you should have got a paper that states it appealed. I was too young.
You're a minor, for God's sake.
So when I appealed this 3 years ago, I started appealing this, I think. When I found out and I got tired of hearing, because I thought maybe it just hadn't come out of the system yet.
But you shouldn't even be taking time out of your life to appeal something on a false allegation, and this is all premeditated stuff for children and youth.
And they were my legal guardian at that point. So
point of the story, do not trust any guardian ad litem. Don't trust children and youth services or CPS.
So once I started getting it, appealing it, I sent a letter myself to them for the second appeal, and I told them that I was, and the reason for it is I told them I was a minor child, and that I never heard anything from them, that I wanted my right to a hearing. And that's when me and them start conversing, letters back and forth, and that's when I discovered that even there was a hearing, supposedly. Then I find out that there was a hearing, and I'm like, well, I never got notice of it, and I tried calling them, and they said, oh yeah, it's children and youth, and yeah, it was appealed. I said, well, do you have document of it? I'll have to get it out of the file. And it was a week later, I didn't hear nothing back from them. And that's when, at that time, I had already sent the appeal in myself physically to make sure it was done. And I get notice for a hearing that I had sent in. And
well, just to go over this, they make it impossible for you to keep up with stuff in the court system.
Oh,
the court system's set up for you to fail. You cannot understand this. We're not lawyers. This is written up for lawyers, but if you're a pro se litigant, you actually have more rights than if you sign on with a lawyer. But Tom, I need you to explain, because I didn't realize we're at like an hour and 17 minutes. So go ahead and tell them, it's basically almost every time Tom has a child, he's in fear that they're going to come and take that other child. So go over, and this is a beautiful example of what goes on. And I do want to show a picture of your judge. What's her name again?
My judge?
No, I'm sorry. It was your judge from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That started at your divorce. I want to show that picture.
Tina Gartley.
Because they have her plastered all over in the paper like, she's this great person, trying to help out, doing everything in the best interest of the children. And here this judge is absolutely doing the opposite.
Hold on. But anyway, while I pull up the picture. So, and anyway, back in, we'll kind of jump. I had, like I said, it'll be 3 years tomorrow, that the event happened. They showed up at my door on a indicated report of physical abuse on my daughter. That she was, had a bruising on her face. I was at work. At that point, my wife, at the time, was home, and she called me. So I tell her, hold on. I said, I'm coming home. I get home, and I see that they're at the house, and I start talking to them and figuring out what's going on. And they tell me that they were out to investigate a report of physical abuse on her face, that she was supposedly hit in the face. And they asked to see my daughter, and I told her no. And the reason why I told them no was because if anybody has a little common sense, well, I'm sure we all do compared to these idiots, but anybody with a little common sense, any child at the age of 6 years old, knows where they are between the hours of usually 8 and 3. Right.
I'm listening. I'm
Well,
just trying
anyway.
to find her name on here. I forget her name.
Anyway, my daughter's mother, it was 3 o'clock or 12 o'clock that day when it happened, and they showed up to see my daughter, and I told them no because she was at school. I wasn't taking my daughter out of school. That is my right for my daughter to have her education, and that's what I wanted my daughter to do, to get her education. So instead of them going to her school to investigate and see what was going on, because I told them no, they couldn't see her, I was the bad guy. Why would I have told them yes, they could have seen my daughter when I didn't even have my daughter? She was at school.
Yeah.
So why didn't they go to the school to see her themselves?
Yeah.
You know,
They could have called her down to the nurse office, just asked her a couple questions. Not that they even have a right to do that. But instead of doing it this way. So go ahead, finish your story.
So
I didn't mean to disrupt you there.
that's all right. So anyway, like I said, and second of all, she was in school, so the school's a mandated reporter by law that they have to call on any reports of physical abuse.
And you had none?
I had none. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I said, my facts, I wasn't worried about it because if this supposedly happened, then the school's going to be wrong for not calling if there was signs. And she was just to the doctor's the day before, so I wasn't worried about it. So I told them they had to leave. I said, I don't want you there. I said, you're not welcome. I said, I'm done talking to you. This is the end of the conversation. They said, you guys need to leave. I said, right now you guys are an unwanted person. I said, if not, I'm going to have you arrested. So they finally leave, and when they're leaving, the worker that was there, Ashley Welsh, looks at me and says, you're fighting a system that you're never going to win. And she goes...
She actually admitted that?
Mm-hmm. She looks at me and says, and then she tells me, we will be back. She goes, you're too young to be a father. Had they known that the mother...
Wait, was she acting... was she acting cocky? Or was
Oh,
she
yeah.
saying, I thought, okay, that's nice.
Oh, yeah. And she told me I was too young to be a father. And I just thought to myself, you know what, you can keep running your mouth all you want, I don't care. Have you known that my daughter's mother is younger than me? That would bite you in the ass. So I just kept my mouth shut. Well, 8 o'clock that night, they came to my house, and the police did too. It was like 8 o'clock, like I said, at night. And I have these lights coming through my window. And I'm like, who the hell is shining lights in my window? So I go out, and when I go out to see what the hell is going on, because nobody should be shining the light in any window. I don't care, not at 8 o'clock at night. So I go out, and next thing I know, there is a cop outside. That's all I see. That's the only person I see. So I ask him what the hell he's doing and what's going on. So, and first thing he comes out of his mouth is, you better be on your best behavior, or I'm taking you to jail. First off, what the hell are you at my house for? And why are you threatening me?
Right, what's with the power trip?
I said, I don't give a shit who you are. I said, I don't care if you're a cop or not. I said, you get out of bed the same way I do. You get dressed the same way I do. You wear the same clothes I do. I said, the only difference is you have a damn badge. I said, I'll go to the dollar store and get a badge if I want one.
That's the problem. People have to stop treating these, quote, professionals as they're above you, because really they're not. They're not. And I'll get over that later. But continue your story about this. So they come to your house. They're making you look bad, making everything look suspicious. You know.
And then, like I said, all I saw was him. And then after that, and I said to him, what does he need? He tells me that he's here with children and youth, that they're there to take my child. I said, for what? And he says because they have report done on me that came through, and it was supposedly for inappropriate physical abuse to a minor child that required bruising, that my house was deplorable, that the minor child was not fed, and that the minor child is dirty and does not have a bed to sleep in. So that is the actual report that they came out and removed her for on that date. Now keep in mind, there was never, when she came out earlier that day, it was physical abuse on my daughter.
So wait, when they take her out, what's your child doing? Is she kicking, screaming, crying? Right there, that's child abuse. That's kidnapping.
When they took my child,
legal kidnapping.
When they took my child from me that night, my daughter was screaming, kicking, and wouldn't let go of me. And I wouldn't let go of her, and then the cop looks at me and says, if you don't let go of her, I'm going to cuff you and take you to jail for interfering with the well-being of a child. I said, no. I said, you're interfering with the well-being of a child.
Good for you. That's disgusting.
I said, you expect me to just come and hand my kid over to somebody? I said, I don't think so. I said, I've raised her for 6 years. I said, I'll be damned if somebody's going to take me. I said, you can put me in cuffs before I let go of her voluntarily.
So what'd they do?
I ended up in cuffs that night.
And where was your daughter?
They took her.
Oh.
And a daughter at 6 years old, when they did take her, and instead of putting her in a booster seat, you know, children use is supposed to be in the best interest of the child, put her in a car seat. She's 55 pounds. She belongs in a booster.
I just can't. At this point, are you like, God, why is this happening to me? Why? And I'm gonna cut you right there. I just want to show this picture. Her name this is the judge that Barry started out with. Her name is, and I don't even put this in front of him, honorable. It's dishonorable, Tina Gartley. And she actually, I mean, how these people have a conscience, I don't know. I don't know if you can see that or not. I don't know if I can blow it up this way. But this woman, always remember this name. She shouldn't even be on the bench anymore. Tina Gartley out of Luzerne County.
So after they get her and they leave, he left me go. He put me in the car. So at that point, my mind's going. I was like, I didn't know. I felt like it was a big dream. Well, that's what I was hoping it was. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to think. It's like, why? What the hell just happened that I missed? So after they leave, he's letting me go, and I'm like, thinking to myself, why the fuck am I in cuffs? And you're letting me go. There's no reason.
And this is a system building up your rage. Because why not? Someone's taking your child. You don't know if they're going to take that child, sell the child, sex trafficking. You don't know what's going on with your child. That's awful. So they're building the rage in you, and you should have rage.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, and like I said, these reports are only on my daughter.
But weren't you just at the doctor the day before?
Yeah.
And there's no reports
Yep.
of abuse, anything. Thank God you went to the doctor that day.
Yeah. So anyway, then we have the hearing, the permanency hearing, which was the following day on the 2 days later, I'm sorry, they took her the night of the 19th, the hearing was on the 21st. So we go into the hearing, and...
Where is your daughter right now? Do you even know?
I have no idea at this point. From the 19th up until the 21st, I have no idea, no nothing. I am left out with the loop, with nothing going on. All I know is I have these indicated...
So they could abuse the child right there and then, and they're going to come back and blame it on you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And actually...
That's
because
sick.
You know what, I'm tired, you know what, I wanted to keep this part, but I'm not. When they removed my daughter that night, they removed my stepdaughter as well. They took both of them that night. So in the meantime, they take both of these girls, and we don't know nothing from the 19th to the 21st. When the hearing comes up, I get appointed a court-appointed lawyer. The court-appointed lawyer seems like a decent guy, but I told him, this is what I want. I don't give a shit what you have to say, what you're telling me. This is this, and this is how it's going to go, and if you don't like it, then don't even do it. At the first hearing, the mother wasn't appointed a lawyer at that point, because once they removed my daughter, I gave them her contact information and address. And my daughter's mother never found out until the 21st, an hour before our hearing, that she had to be there. They said that
Set me up to fail.
They said, yeah, oh, absolutely. They said that they didn't have a contact number or address for her, which I had just gave them when they were there. And she had also asked them, just to play their games, asked them, what do you have for me? And they gave her the number and address that were both current for her. So how is it not active? So she don't have a lawyer at that point, but I did. My appointed lawyer was already appointed. I said they wanted to continue the hearing right away, and I said, no, I'm going through with my end. If you need to continue it on her end, go for it. At least I can get my part done and over with. So all of the original reports that came through on the 19th for them to take my child is what we had to be in court for. And on the 21st at our hearing, in front of Tina Gartley again.
Did that raise an eyebrow as soon as you heard that name?
Mm-hmm. I told my dad once I started. I think after this hearing, I looked at my dad, and I'm sure he can tell you or not. I told him, I'm fighting a system. I'm fighting a system that's corrupted. And I said, it's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to end overnight. I said, this is going to take me at least 3 years to get it all resolved. I said, if it's sooner, I'll be surprised. But I said, I guarantee you about 3 years to fix everything. And I'm just about done, and it's 3 years tomorrow. So, all the original reports that came through on the 19th, we had the hearing on the 21st. So, at that point, I had knew that they didn't investigate. They just did what the hell they wanted to. And had they have investigated me and did their job the right way, they would have found out that it wasn't true. So I told my attorney, because he pulled me off the stand to try to get me to continue the hearing. And I said, hell no, I'm not doing it. Because I knew they had nothing on me. I wasn't waiting, and I wasn't giving them that opportunity to try to find something or make up some bullshit to use it against me.
Right, and put it on your docket that's not true.
Right. So I pushed him, and I said, either you're going to make your voice heard today, or I'm going to go out in there, and I'm going to scream and carry on until I get heard. I said, there's no reason that we can't go forward. So we had the cop that was there the night before. We had the worker that was there the night before. We had their supervisor that was there. And we had the guardian ad litem all there. And
so you're going into the court system feeling like, I'm going to fail because all these people are against me.
I kind of felt...
They're supposed to be protecting you, not against you.
I kind of felt like I was going to fail, but I knew at that point in that particular one they couldn't bring me down. I knew they didn't have shit on me unless they were abusing the system to their advantage. That's the only thing they had on me. So I was going in balls to the wall, and that's the way it was. Like it or love it. You know, if you don't like it, maybe you won't mess with me again. You'll leave me the hell alone. And stop doing your bullcrap that you're doing.
Show them the dates.
So, anyway, like I said, we had the hearing, and on the 21st, which is for the evidence, which was nothing was founded. They had no evidence, physical evidence. They even stated, which I have the transcript for, that everything they had indicated me for to use to take my daughter was all unfounded. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that part's done. And it relieved a lot. And then I didn't understand. We're walking out, and I look at my lawyers and so, why don't I have my child back to me today? I said, they have no evidence. I said, you can't give somebody a DUI without having evidence on it. I said, and all evidence have been unfounded. So why isn't she coming back? He said because of they had to do the hearing on the mom's side yet. I said, what does that have to do with me?
Mm-hmm. Give me the child now, and you can still talk
I
to
said,
mom.
you can do your investigation with her. The point of the matter is that there was no evidence founded on me, so why am I suffering and why is my daughter suffering? And in the meantime, my daughter, I found out after the fact, actually about 4 weeks ago, that throughout all of these hearings, my daughter was there. They had her behind closed doors, which pisses me off.
And God knows what's happening behind closed doors, and why is a minor behind closed doors with who? Just the judge?
And I guess the guardian ad litem, which I don't know who's all there, but that had pissed me off a lot more. You know, and then, like I said, after everything happens, she ends up going with her mother, which it was one of those battles that she didn't belong with her mother because of some of her past, but it wasn't nothing jeopardizing my daughter. It was just me being selfish when it came to my kid. That was my kid.
You know what? Explain that, because, and I'm not judging, I don't even know your wife, and I'm not judging by any means, but did she have a drug issue, or did she have an abusive background?
No, she got arrested for, well, they tried charging her with vandalism and corruption to mortal of a minor.
Okay, but you have a clean record, and now they take the child, and they give it to the parent that has a record. Mm-hmm. Not saying that record was true, but I'm just saying right there that doesn't make sense. You have no record, and they're putting the child into the parent that has a record. Mm-hmm. And they do that all the time. But I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just trying to make a point, and I'm not demeaning or putting down your wife by any means.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying this is the games that they play because they want that parent to fail so they can come back and steal the child.
Yep. So anyway, like I said, she had been going through that. It wasn't, she wasn't arrested or anything. She had them there. She was fighting them in court. But the point of the matter was, until with the corruptions of minor, that's what worried me. That's why I was being selfish, you know, and I wasn't letting them put me down. I wanted her to come back to me and stay with me. You know?
Of course.
Being selfish. She was with me. She saw her mother on weekends and every other Tuesday. So, in a way, I had to swallow my pride and stand back and just look at the big picture, but
at least she's with her mom.
At least she was with her mom and not in the system. So I find, and my stepdaughter then at that point ends up going back to my soon-to-be ex-wife's dad. And I would say maybe about a week after, or maybe even longer, her dad and her works out their visitations in custody again, because if anything would happen to her, she would go to her dad. So then they took all that back into court and got that settled. After that was done, here to find out, when children and youth removed the kids and took them, I guess they investigated, make sure there was no bruising, nothing like that. We find out that when they did the investigation with my daughter, my daughter's mother was there, the guardian ad litem was there, the doctors were there. There was multiple people in the room while they did this investigation on my behalf. Or, well, not on my behalf, but on my part with my daughter. And then we find out on the grapevine, on the other end of the deal, that was my wife's my stepdaughter, that when they did her investigation, the only one that was in the room was the doctor. They refused to let the worker in there. They refused to let her mom in there or her stepmother in there. And then here to find out, she tells us that the doctor touched her. And when we go to question...
Who said that?
My stepdaughter.
Your stepdaughter tells you that the doctor touched her.
Yep. And when we go to find out who the fuck this doctor is, nobody tells us it. Nobody's putting anybody's information out there. We don't know who it is.
Oh my God.
They took my daughter and the stepdaughter to 2 different doctors. So we were trying to go to the doctor that they had my daughter and find out that they've never had her there.
You think you're trusting a system to keep your children safe, and they're the ones that are attacking and abusing your kids. This was the other thing I wanted you to...
So anyway, like I said, then after going through these hearings, at the last one, which I found out was actually the one with the permanency or the placement hearing, there was like 8 or 9 different hearings that I went through, and I was dealing the lawyer, which was Lois Mattioli, that they appointed me. I got fed up with. He kept telling me all the time that they're not listening to anything he has to say and blah blah blah. Well, what the hell good are you? You're a lawyer. Open your mouth. I know if somebody told me they weren't going to hear me, I'm going to start screaming until I am heard. So when he told me that at the last hearing, I happened to actually fire him at the hearing. Before the hearing, so I was going to ask for continuance, because in the meantime I was continuing with another attorney that I was going to hire myself, and so I thought, okay, then I can get a continuance because I'm looking for an attorney. I don't think so. You don't have that chance. They never gave it to me, so they went on with the hearing without me. So what happened at that hearing, I have no idea. But then after that hearing,
which is illegal, by the way, but they make it like we notified you and you didn't show up, but in reality you weren't notified and you found out after the fact.
No, I was there.
Oh, I thought you meant you missed that hearing.
No, I was there. I was there, and I fired the attorney at the hearing.
Okay.
At the day of the hearing, because he wasn't doing no good for me. Why did I want to waste my time with him?
Absolutely.
Because at that point I had already talked to another one that I was going to hire.
Okay.
So, and he was just already booked that day. So he couldn't have made it. And so I was like, okay, if I don't have an attorney, then they will probably let me continue it. No. That judge actually came out and told me that if I didn't continue, I was going to lose everything and everything else, and basically tried to bribe me to go into this hearing without a lawyer and told me I didn't need one. I said, I don't care if I need one or not. I said, it is my right to have an attorney, and I want an attorney here. I said, I don't trust you guys as far as I can throw you, let alone see you. So, I'm not sure. I'm probably somewhere in that hearing it was brought in. Well, let's just say after that hearing, next thing I know, I'm getting a PFA put on me. Keep in mind, my daughter was with me for 6 years. Her mother and I hadn't been together for 2 years prior. I'm getting a PFA on behalf of my daughter and behalf of her mother for physical abuse that I supposedly slapped the child and her mother in the face. Now, here's the other catch. The date that it supposedly happened was the 20th of 2014 in November. If we recall the dates correctly, November 19th of 2014 is the day they removed my child. November 20th of 14 is the day the PFA of the last incident happened. And the 21st is the day that the hearing was for my child.
Oh my God. So when did you slap her and hit her?
My point.
Exactly.
At the hearing on the 21st, they said there was no marks or nothing. So this is a system that contradicts themselves. And as long as you don't keep your stuff and back, stuff like that, you're not going to be able to catch them. I went through with this hearing on this PFA, and had I have pulled all my stuff out and not have been bombarded with everything all at once, trying to see everything and actually having been in the right frame of mind, I probably would have caught that sooner. But it was a week later when I caught it, when the new attorney got in and started raising hell about it. That the dates, I would have been like, what the hell's going on? But, like I said,
But also tell them about your ex-wife, how she didn't want to file a PFA.
Yeah.
It was forced. She was intimidated and in fear and had to put a PFA on him.
So, after everything was taken care of, and I thought I had broke down that last wall that I had to fight, and that they had nothing else on me, we go into the hearing for the PFA, because at that point, everything custody-wise with my daughter had to be on hold, because you can't have custody and have custody and a PFA at the same time. So, I knew everything on the other end had been done, and now I had to conquer the PFA part. And once again, in honor rule of Tina Gartley, who was the PFA hearing officer, allowed the hearing to go through on hearsay and no evidence. And in that particular one, if you go and look at, now the dates on the incident on that happened, the hearing was on December 18th of 2014. In the transcript for the hearing that happened there, she claimed that the incident happened a year prior to that, which is now, we've got a December 18th of 2013. But yet in her original filing, it was in November 20th of 14. Now it's 13 in the transcript.
So they can't even get their dates or facts right.
Nope.
I love it. That's great examples of how our court system is. They just will put anything on the docket. They will put anything in transcripts. They have no conscience. They have no soul. They just destroy families, destroy kids intentionally. And I'd be all over this judge.
So once I discovered that, I had immediately went back because I wanted the rest of my transcripts. I saw that and I'm like, God only knows what the hell else is in there that I don't know about. There was 9 other hearings, total of 9 hearings I went through. I have transcripts on 2. I am still 3 years later, still waiting for the rest of the transcript.
See, this is where I get very upset for the fact that here's an innocent person, born basically into the system, starts with the father, keeps going down. His whole entire life he is on the defense and always has to prove. He shouldn't have to prove this much. His whole life has been in the court system or in a system, and it's all under false allegations. Actually, say it's so scary. Tell them about this part, that they will go to no length to keep you down and keep pushing you down where that situation happens.
And then, all right, yeah, I'll get that. So once the PFA is done, and I got that taken care of, I end up getting slapped with a 3-year PFA. So then, after that comes, I couldn't figure out, I kept getting, like, children had been gone. I haven't heard from them in over a month at this point. I started getting letters in the mail from Department of Health with other prior indicated reports. Now, I had in mind the child is not with me at this time, so how the hell am I still getting indicated reports? I had one come through, I think it was this one didn't come through. This one was done, and this is the one I was telling you about. This come through on 1/16 of 15. Child hadn't been with me since November 14. They claimed the incident happened 8/15/13. Let me tell you something. 8/15/13 is a very common date, easy date for them to find, the date of my goddamn daughter's birthday. Why that date of any?
Yeah, that's weird.
But then I didn't get the paper in the mail from them until 2/9 of 15.
So they said it was in August, and you don't receive it till February?
So I immediately sent that hearing in. They fought me. I finally got it. I got into the hearing, and at the hearing, there it is. At this hearing, we start conversing back and forth. And when you file anything like that for DCF, which is above them, you'll start getting letters back and forth from each other. Whatever one person sends to one party, the other person gets it from the other. It goes to the other party too. Well, throughout it all, I was looking. I'm just trying to see where the heck I have it. But when the Department or Children and Youth sent their notice to the Department of Health, because I challenged it, I had to file just to file brief on it. And when they started conversing back and forth, this original document that they had in it does not have any evidence in it at all, as far as basically all it has on this document is the date, my daughter's name, her mom's name, my name, and we're male, female. And that's it. But on their actual one that they sent to the judge when I started filing it and appealing it, happened to come back to me completely filled out. With now my address is in there, the original indicated report is worded different, the dates are there, the birth dates are there, my address is there, her address is there, her telephone number's there, my number's there, my social security number's there, her social security number's there. So why is it on that one but not mine that says copy?
It's the games they play. This is where all our wonderful tax dollars are going, by the way. But a messed up system.
Yeah. So anyway, like I was saying, and then I appealed that. I got that one taken care of. I got that. What a coincidence! Expunged, unfounded. They didn't sustain enough evidence to indicate me. Of course, that's another anonymous referral that went through. So shortly after that, and I start fighting and everything, and I'm bringing them down that they're on their last one that they can fight me on. I get a call from, I don't even remember, but anyway, I find out my daughter's mother's house is on fire.
I don't know if you heard that. Say it again. My house is on fire.
my daughter's mother's house is on fire. So, and in the meantime, at that point, her and I had conversed, and she had just tried suing them a week prior. I didn't know about that until recently. She just tried suing them in court for all this. And they told her she didn't have enough evidence. And
they'll never win because
yeah,
the scam. But go ahead.
So I find out her house is on fire. Well, then after that, keep in mind there's still a PFA. I talked to her mom and find out, going through it to try to recap time and what the hell happened and what she had been told, because it made me out to be the bad guy. And I mean, I had to fight everything. It took almost over 3 years. I'll be into it. But I'm like I said, I told them they're fighting somebody and I'm not giving up. I said, I'm not giving up. So I find out, we start talking about this whole event that happened. And I find out from her that what they were telling me, they were telling her totally opposite. They were turning her against me and me against her through it all.
Very common.
Which is probably why my son's mother and I aren't dealing with it, because she don't take the shit. She already told them that they ain't gonna tell her what to do. And that was on that one time that they went there for her. And they have not been back up with him.
But why? So in other words, they're pitting the parents against each other, and they're keeping them separated. So you're thinking your wife is doing this, your ex-wife is doing this, she's thinking it's you. They're forcing her to put a PFA on, and she doesn't even want to do that. but she does because of the intimidation
And I told
from
her
them.
she wouldn't have got my daughter either.
So she goes ahead and files, and then she finally turns around and is suing the court system for what they're doing to her, and her house ends up on fire.
And that happens to be...
And all her evidence is what? Burned down?
Yep.
So, go figure. They make it impossible for you to win and for you to ever get your head above the water. Anyway, this has been almost 2 hours, so I want to come to a close here. I mean, do you have anything else to say? Just kind of bullet point and pull everything together?
I mean, and then I'll do my third real quick. My third child, with me already being in the system once, with my second son, they basically took him because of the mother background. They said it wasn't me, but yet I don't have him. So I kept asking why, and in the meantime, they keep using this lovely allegation because I have indicated reports, which remind you had been just appealed and won in my favor against me in court. So then when I told them they couldn't do that, next thing I know, it's a drug and alcohol problem. I go for counseling for that. They tell me I don't need the service. After that, next thing I know, they're trying to use my mental health. So I go for a psych evaluation through Northeast Counseling, and they recommend, all they said, you have ADHD, which we knew that in the beginning. Okay. No medication are required though. Okay, fine. I knew that too. So I go into court with that. That wasn't good enough. They want me to go to a second one. So I go for a second one. Through Northeast Counseling, I requested a second doctor, a different doctor. This doctor does it. ADHD, no medication. Now that's two people, two reports, same thing, nothing matches. So I go in with that, they didn't like that. Next thing I know, they want me to go for a third one, and I had enough. And I said, you know what, you find me somewhere to go, you pay for it, and I'll go. I go, they tell me where to go, I go. This one, I mean, sticks up for me, but when we go into the evaluation, she starts documenting in the evaluation how I had missing teeth and my fingernails were dirty. Well, you know what? These people are taking time out of my life to do their bullshit, but in the meantime, I'm doing what I got to survive and fight for my kid. Had she have asked, maybe instead of assuming and making an ass out of herself, asked me, she would have knew I came from work. So anyway, then
Well, first of all, ADHD doesn't give you a reason to take your child away from you. Second of all, ADHD, I think, is a made-up disease so that they can drug you. Third of all, if you have dirty fingernails and no teeth, that has nothing to do with you loving your child.
Absolutely.
And you should never break that bond. Ever. So,
after I spoke with this woman, I ended up having to go back and do what was called a tooth, paper, and pencil test, which were used to score. It was called the Million Clinic Multi-Auxiliary Inventory 3 and the Minnesota Multi-Phrases Personality Inventor. So, and needless to say, the whole concern was my past indicated reports that with my youngest son they were using against me. That's why they had me go to the county for the psych eval. I went through 3, which all 3 were in favor of me with my child. But now they are not giving them back.
And how old is he now? 2?
2.
And how long has it been since you saw him?
I see him, this particular son, every week.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Which is good. But it's a vicious cycle. They go through the same steps until you back them out and prove them wrong. You're going to run through the system. And that's because they have a certain amount of time. If they keep them, they can automatically less of a fight for you to get them back and bond you together so that they can put them in the system and adopt them out.
Tom, I commend you for having, how many years? How old are you now?
I'll be 30 next month.
30 years of this torture through the court systems, I mean, honest to God, I would move away. I would move away to get out of this area. Luzerne County and Columbia, obviously there's scandal, there's corruption, and it's all in this system. I would love to go into all the mental homes and free out these children, free everyone from this, because this is just a money-making machine for our government. Anyway, we definitely have to close. Barry, come on in here. I just want to thank Barry because he's brave enough to come and tell his story after all these years of just by one thing. One thing, he lost his children for drinking. Guess what? 95% of the world drinks, so he should have never lost those kids. And I think you did a great job. You did what you thought was right. I'm glad you guys are reconnected, and I hope we can end this. That's what Love Dominates is all about. We're about keeping the families together. And the one thing I do want to say is I really, really want to touch on equality. We have to get equality across the board. ERA, everything. It means we are one human race. You don't judge. You have compassion. We all come from the, same cloth, basically. We just have different cultures, which we should accept. And nobody's above anybody. Nobody's below anyway. We have to quash, like totally squash the whole court system. Abolish it. Also, if anyone out there, we are with Punished for Protecting. We are out there to take your stories. We're trying to make awareness to this and to absolutely end this abuse. Because love is the ultimate power. And as Tom was saying, his child was dying and running to be with him. And the courts are separating that. You should never separate that bond, ever. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. I apologize. It's 2 hours long, but it's definitely a good story. It's 3 generations deep with one judge. This judge should be held accountable. All these GALs should be held accountable, and everyone involved, because it's intentional. I don't know how these people have a conscience. Anyway, love dominates. Punished for protecting. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.